Ready, guys. Good morning. Welcome to this Monday, August 11th. And yes, I sound like I'm still battling a cold. I am still fighting that damn thing. So still working on it. But so far, the last Friday close had a pretty strong close. I was waiting for that little sell-off on Friday. That never happened. They started taking this higher, and they ended up a little spurt at the very end to the upside. So that was a very positive sign. And since then, the overnight has been pretty much holding on to that same gains, pretty much moving higher, or holding on to the gains, I should say. They tried to probably with high, but they're holding on. They're not backing off just yet, at least. So that's a good sign. So going into this week, in terms of news, today we have no news at all. Tomorrow we get the CPI read at 8:30. Wednesday, not much news to drive the market on Wednesday. Thursday we get the jobless claims and the PPI read. And on Friday we have a ton of stuff coming out on Friday. The retail sales, Empire State, import export, retail, industrial production, business inventories, consumer sentiment, everything coming out on Friday. So mixed bag of news. Like, so I guess Thursday and Friday, or Tuesday and Thursday, we're gonna get some little bit of action. Maybe Friday as well. So that's what we got on news. Nothing to drive the market today, though. So we'll just have to see how the market feels about everything. So far, yesterday Friday's move to the upside was welcome, and we'll take that. I would start off, as I said, from the long side of the market, look to buy weakness against the 6410s, 6400, 6390s for rotations back up. If they trade below that 6490s, would take off the long bias and go back range bound. So 6490s takes it below that volume edge right there. Yeah, this little volume edge down here. Next attractor down is going to be the 6370s, and then we have that lower distribution to contend with. But so that's the way I'm going to start off the ES today. Range bound bias is to the upside. At least to get started. Now we're not in the move out of the middle to the upside yesterday. This could be one if they keep going here. But if this is just a probe up to resistance, this could certainly just turn into a dud, which just reverses right away. So I'm not going to call this one a move out of the middle yet. I'm going to have to wait for this one to take out some of these highs for that to occur. But you can argue it if you want, but it's the fact that they just kind of run right into to an attractor point at 6410 and a little bit higher. It's not quite what I would call a move out of the middle, but if they keep going, if we see extensions today and they start heading higher, maybe we're going to have to start treating it as a move out of the middle to the upside. On the way up, I'm going for short setups against the 6430s and 40s for rotations down. 40s, when above 40s, I would stay on the long side. So pretty aggressive on just the first couple of levels here. So if these two areas is going to hold, or it's going to, yeah, it holds, I think we may be back in the range bound market. And if they take them out, I think we are back on the long side, maybe trying to grind this higher. So pretty straightforward approach to get started this morning. So starting off on the long side, looking to buy a weakness against that 6410, 6400s, 6390s for rotations back up. Looking for short setups against the 6425 to 30s and the 6440s for rotations back down. About 40s, and stay on the long side. They can still be short setups up here, but it's much I'm going to be much less aggressive on them. So that's the ES to get started this morning. Looking at the bonds and NASDAQ. So the bond market is pretty much holding in a range. We had that crazy move down here the other day, but so far they haven't really moved a whole lot. They're still holding above that 115 level, which means that they're in a pretty good spot to potentially take this higher. So the long-term yields holding, let's get my F1 down here. The long-term yields holding right at above that volume edge at the 115s. And as long as they hold there, I think we have a shot at potentially taking this higher. So we'll see. If I fold this whole thing together, you can see, yeah, yes, it becomes a bigger distribution. So it's I'm going to leave it up for a second. Let me do this end split like that. Hold these together. Oop, end split. There you go. Leave that for now and see if that one turns into something more. But I would start off primarily range band. If anything, I would favor the long side until they take out the 115s on the bond. So looking to buy weakness, 1505s, 15s, 1428s for rotations back up. And looking for short setups against the 11510s, 15/16s, 15/20s, up to that level, the 15/30s, 28 to 30s. I would say above that 15/20, let's stay on the long side. The last one to get short against is that 15/28 to 30s, I think. Maybe the 1/16s, with these two resistance areas. But I think if they take out that 15/20, I think we have a good call, a good shot on then trading back up here to the 28s. But these levels could potentially hold as well for resistance. So, but I would look for the first two, 28 and the 1/16s for rotations back down. So that is the bonds to get started. Nasdaq is also the one which has the most potential, given all this big tech stock and the AI trade, which potentially could be driving this whole thing a lot higher. So Nasdaq definitely moved. They moved Thursday, extended Friday. This session they are still to the upside, pushing the highs, but it hasn't quite extended yet. Let's see if they can make something out of it. If they keep going, we'll be in price discovery here in no time again, making new highs on the Nasdaq, and that would be a move out of the middle for sure. But I would look for short setups against resistance here. A bit of caution though, but 760s, 800s, and the 850s for rotations back down. I would look to buy weakness, 720s, 700, 720s, 680s, 620s, down to that 580s. I would say below that 620 level, if that support area comes out, I would take off the long bias and go back a range bound. So I'm going to buy against these three levels on the way down. If they take it further down, just take off the long bias and go back and trade this as a range bound market. So that's the way I would approach Nasdaq, at least to get started. And yeah, excuse me if I zoom through this a little bit quicker than normal, but this is the rest of my head. Oil and gold. So oil backing up again, not a whole lot, but they've been grinding this to the downside. And I would stay on the short side on oil, at least favor the short side. As long as they hold this edge, stay below the 64.50s. I would look for short setups against the 64.30, 64.70 here, these two resistance areas. For rotations back down, that would be that big ledge right there. It says 50 here, but it's these two resistance areas. And if they take those out, I think we can run back right back to 65.50s again. That would be back to value. If not, it's short setups here could turn into a nice move to the downside. Looking to buy weakness, not very aggressively at this point, but buying against that 63.60s, the 63s down to the 62.80s for rotations back up again. It's a bit less aggressively because we are starting off with a bias to the downside. But if they hold, it could certainly hold. I mean, there is value down here as well. It's not like it hasn't been anything going on there. There's a previous edge there. There's some value right there. So I would just assume that they're going to try to take this lower and look for a reverse retest, see if they can take it lower. I'm going to be less aggressive on the buying side of this, and until they take out the 64, the 30 to 40s here in the 60s, that would take us right up here in this upper range again. So that's oil. And then finally gold. So gold kind of melting down a bit, but they had this spectacular freaking run here the other day, based on some tariff concerns or some tariff talk. You saw gold spiking. They spiked like late in the overnight, and then Fridays there was Thursdays and spiked a bit, and Fridays absolutely went bonkers right up here to the 35 30s, and then reverse all the things and back down again, and then further coming down here today. So that was kind of an odd thing. But I think that right now I'm just going to look at that as something which is backing off to the downside. Right, so that's kind of what I'm looking at for gold. So trading this from the short side of the market to get started. We're going to sell strength. I would say, well, maybe the 34.10 to 12 here, but definitely the 34.23s, the 30s up to that level, the 38s. If they start trading above 38s, I think that would be, let's see, they start trading above that 47s, that little ledge there. If they started tracing past that on the way up, I think we had to shift our bias again. But At this point, I would look for short setups against the resistance for rotations down. Like gold can move pretty quick. So I mean, it's just because it's down now, they can certainly reverse that overnight pretty hard. But I would look initially for short setups against that 24s, 30s, 38s, 44s, up to that 52. And I think above this area here, the 44s, I said 47 on the F1, but 44 here, it's a more precise range. I think we'll take off the short bias and go back range bound. So looking for short setups against the 25s, 29 to 30s, 37, 38s, 44, 45s for rotations back down. And buying support, I think the 3400s here is we're getting right into those support areas. So if you look at gold, we're right into that support area. So this is a good spot to get long for rotations back up if you think it's going to hold. So I would look for long setups here, not necessarily very aggressively, but so 3404s, 3398s, 92s down to the 3388s. So these support areas, that's going to be commensurate with that ledge or this level right there. And if they take out that area and the way down, I think we are running right back down to the attractor here at the 3340s. But right now, if that holds, we can certainly see a rotation back up and start building value. So starting off with a bias to the downside on gold. Let's see if these support areas going to hold. They're running right into them now. So it could be a potential long buying opportunity there. But since we're starting with a bias to the downside, it's going to be less aggressive on that buying opportunity, at least for now. All right, so that's gold to get started. Back to the ES. And everything's kind of where we left it. So no news to drive the market today. Starting off from the long side on both the ES and NASDAQ, and then see how this whole thing shakes out. So good trading, guys. And I'm gonna lean back and have some coffee and nurse my cold. All right, guys. And see you back at 11:30.